Hi everyone, and welcome to The Big Picture. I'm Penny Wolfgang, and actually today we have a special Big Picture because, as you know, today is a special day. It is Mother's Day, and we're here to celebrate Mother's Day, and we thank you so much for celebrating with us and for watching The Big Picture today with us. So our special guest is my very special person in the whole world, my daughter, Robin Wolfgang. And this was John's idea. He said, well, it's Mother's Day and you're a mother, so maybe your viewers would like to know what it's like to be a mother and what it was like growing up for Robin, growing up with you as a mother, and maybe some tips about being a mother, which I don't know if I can do that. But anyway, here in the studio with us, joining us today, actually in our home, is my daughter, Robin Wolfgang. So Robin, I just want to say from the beginning, and I want to tell you guys that I gave you your Miranda warnings already. I told you that you don't have to, anything you say can be used against you. You have the right to be, you have the right to be silent.
Correct.
And I didn't coerce you or threaten you or bribe you to be here today. Right?
Well.
Oh, dear.
That part I don't know if I can agree to.
So
a little bit of bribery.
A little bit. Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah, I have that method. I have that way. Hey, you know, I think maybe everyone would like to know, maybe they would, I don't know, John thinks they would, what was it like growing up having me for a mother?
Well, obviously it's wonderful. There are a lot of pros. Certainly, no. You know, I think that people always talk about working women and how do they balance their work and their life, their private life, and how do they be a professional and a successful professional while also being a mother. And I think you were way ahead of your time in your ability to do both things and do them well. Certainly, you know, you were very busy. You were working from the time I was born. I mean, obviously you were a lawyer before you were a judge. But you never missed any dance recitals or any ice skating shows or any horseback riding. Well, maybe horseback riding.
Maybe
you
horseback riding.
I'm
scared of those horses.
But you were always present. You were always there. You were always helpful. And so I think that, you know, that was before companies made the ability easier for women. I think, you know, you had to do those things when you were in a man's world and people weren't used to the mother's role having to be accounted for. So if you had a trial or if you were, you know, had a case or something, you still had to figure out a way to get me from point A to point B or get me home or make sure I did my homework or had dinner. And obviously I turned out okay, so none of those things got missed. And I think that those are things you've taught me for my daughter to make sure that as I work that I still have time to attend events and help with homework and do all the things that, you know, parents do while also working. So that's the big pro side of you. You were a great example for me and for hopefully for my daughter as well as to what women can do, as I said, before it was so commonplace.
But there's a but here. I think it was difficult being the daughter of somebody, which I was, in the public eye or a public figure almost from day one. Well, probably you were too young to remember when I wasn't. But I know there's some downsides of being the daughter of somebody that could be in trouble. And I know you had incidents where you had to think, oh, I better not do this, or if I do this, this is going to be bad for my mother, or she's going to be mad, or it's going to be in the newspaper, or that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would agree with that. I think that there was a couple of things. First of all, I switched schools from my middle school, now they call it middle school, to high school. And when I started in this new high school, I think there was a lot of preconceived notions about who I was and what I would be like before I even said boo to people. And that was because you had just finished a campaign and you were very well known and you were on TV. And so that certainly was, you know, high school's hard to begin with. So that's sort of a knock, if you will, before you even get started. So I had to become, you know, prove myself in certain ways. I, you know, got involved in certain sports or did certain things and tried to make my own name in my own way to maybe disabuse people of a preconceived notion. So I think that was something that, like I said, as a high schooler was a little more challenging. Luckily for me, there was also somebody else in my high school whose mother was also a judge, and a female judge, and she was older than me. And she got into a little more trouble than me. She had some incidences that made the paper. Some things happened, and so
Took the pressure off you.
took the pressure off of me. I would always say, so at least I'm not her. At least I didn't do what she did. At least you didn't, have to deal with this. And that definitely made it easier for me to use that example. And because we were so on par and so alike in those similarities, I think that helped me a little bit. But there certainly were things that I was afraid to do. I mean, I remember going to house parties, for example, and if the police were to be called or something, I would, not want to be the person walking around with a drink in my hand. So I
You
was
went to a
always afraid.
house party and drank when you were underage?
No,
Oh, I'm
no.
so glad
No,
we're doing
no.
this interview. Look at all I'm learning. This is great.
That's the least, right? But so I just would worry that, I would be the one to get in trouble, as you said from the start. So I definitely, waited until I left town and went to college before I did anything that could be in trouble.
This when I was thinking of what to talk about when we were together, and the saddest day of my life that I'll never forget was when we took you to college, because you went far away to college to Atlanta, and when we drove you there, and you got out and we fixed the dorm up and whatever, and then we had to leave. When we got in the car to leave, even though you had been to sleepaway camp and you had been away a little bit, but the saddest thing, when I got back in the car and we were driving back to New York from Atlanta, I was sobbing so hard. I don't know if I ever told you that.
You didn't, Daddy did.
I must have cried the whole way. Yeah. I thought that was the saddest thing. And now you are actually, I know how sad you are when Karen goes away to camp, and it's only temporary. It's a short period of time.
And my husband always says, you signed her up for this, and now you're all upset, and you're counting the minutes till she comes back. And I said, yes, but I know it's good for her. So,
was it hard not only being my daughter, but I don't mean hard, just being my daughter, but the things we talked about before. But being an only child, what is it like now? You are my only child, and you have an only child. Was it hard? Is it hard being a lot of pressure?
People always ask questions about being an only child, but it's all I ever knew, So I wasn't a middle child. I wasn't an older child. I was just an only child. And so I can't really say it was harder than other people have it, because I don't know what to compare it to, for example. I don't know how hard a middle child has it, or an older child who has to take care of her three younger siblings. I mean, I don't know what those challenges are, because I didn't have those challenges. I would say, though, that, we've talked about all my life you were already a successful working mother. So there was a pressure to me in the sense that I would like to live at least up to that. I don't think I'd ever surpass that, because there's only one you, there's only one first, that you can, all those boundaries that you were able to exceed past, I couldn't ever do that. I just would like to at least live up to that standard, maybe, if I could. So I think that was the pressure, was would I be able to go to college, graduate from college, get a job, be successful in that. And to a certain degree, that is also why I did enjoy going away to Atlanta, because it was a clean slate. It was, no one knew you, no one knew anything about you, and there were people with, don't take this the wrong way, but parents who were equally, or if not more, successful than you were in Atlanta.
Yes.
I mean, there was a kid whose father was a DuPont, and he had his own plane. So, I mean, there was definitely a certain level of success. So it just made me be able to be myself and figure out who myself was and what I wanted to do with myself. And then also working in Washington for almost 20 years. It was the same sort of situation where equally people, ambassadors' kids, and people from the administration and congressmen and et cetera, and you just were one of many. So it's definitely on your own, being able to find your niche and be successful. And I think that was really not necessarily a detriment, but it was just a high bar that you had set, that, to live up to and to try to, succeed at that same sort of capacity level.
I remember a card that you sent to us I think you sent it for, let's say, Mother's Day, Father's Day, something like that, and it said on the outside, "Do you know how you can be proud of me every single day?" And the inside it said, "Lower your expectations." And then I'll always remember that. I thought, oh dear, believe me, we were proud of you every single day, but I know it was something in your mind, to think about.
And
What?
I use that same methodology. I mean, I do public relations and I deal with clients all the time. And I think I learned maybe 10, 15 years ago, one of the key things is to set reasonable expectations. When clients come in and they have some product or project, and they want to used to be on Oprah or the front page of the Wall Street Journal, or, they should be on the Today Show right away. And you kind of have to level those expectations and say, this isn't big enough for that, and you're not going to end up there. And so I think that that's sort of a reasonable thing to go through life. I mean, the expectations that you set, you should actually set them reasonably, because if you're going to set them too high, you won't be able to succeed. So I kind of use that in work as well as in life.
Are you bringing up baby? What's that? Bringing up something? There was a famous program. Are you bringing up Karen? Differently or the same, or anything that I taught you, or anything that you're trying to do differently?
I think, as I said, I think you set a really good example for how to be a good, hands-on, involved, engaged parent. And I try to do all of those things. I mean, I certainly help her with homework and take her to activities, right? And engaged in that way. So I think that those are all things that you did. Certainly, there are subject matters that I might be more knowledgeable about than you were.
Yes.
So and activities. There are also, I sometimes think about getting her up in the morning. That was Dad's role. You were never the early morning riser. So those are things that I do.
What a therapy session we're having here.
So those are some of the things that I do that I think about. Those were your roles. Some of the roles are meshed, but that's the joy of having two good parents, is that you take from both and you try to bring those both together. And there are certain things that my husband does, Sean does with Karen, that I don't do. So, I mean, it's always a division of labor.
A balancing act.
Yeah.
It's also a balancing act. I know that one of the many things you're referring to is the fact that I was the worst housekeeper and the worst cook and the worst that you ever could imagine. I can't boil water. And I've never done anything around the house. My excuse was always, I'm too busy, I'm not around, I have other things to do, I'm not a detail person. I can't think of all the excuses I made. But, but you have, I think, reverse that role. I mean, because when I go to your house, for example, everything is neat, everything is not like me, just thrown all over, and you can cook and take care. So I think I was going to say, did you learn anything from me? But I think you learned the opposite of what to do. Is that makes sense?
I make really good poached eggs, and I learned that from you. So that's something.
Oh yeah.
There's something.
Wait, I can make omelets too. Remember that?
Sort of.
One at a time.
Only if you close your eyes and you don't want them to be pretty.
Yes.
I mean, they're kind of mushy.
I can't make anything look good.
My husband is very much about the presentation of food, and that was definitely not a strong suit.
No, and other things too. I also feel like you learned to divide your time better than I did, as far as, like you're mentioning, spending time with Karen and homework and this. And I feel like we're having this therapy session, that maybe I didn't spend enough time because I didn't have enough time, because what you mentioned before, when I was ahead of my time in that regard of being a working mother, but also it was more demanding. I was really obsessed with my career at that point, especially because there were not people that were sympathetic like they are now to being a mother and a wife and a working person. Yeah. So, I mean, for an example, when you were born, I just had to go back to work. Within, I had to go to Pellet Division. They wouldn't take any excuses. Oh, I just had a baby, I can't come. I had to be in Rochester like 4 weeks, less than 4 weeks after I had you, and I didn't have a choice.
I only took 6 weeks off.
Didn't have a choice.
And Karen's 16. So 16 years ago, I only got 6 weeks off. My company gives both the mother and the father 6 months now.
Yes, things have changed quite a bit.
So, yeah, it's different.
You know, we're talking about being a mother, and we've got Karen here, so as an example. People say, oh, you're a mother up until 18 years, let's say, and then the child is grown up, you're on your own, you can drive, you can have a career, but that isn't true. You are a mother forever, right? I think my father used to say to me, I'll always be your father, you know?
Right, right. And I think, you know, in celebration of Mother's Day, I've seen a lot of people posting things on Facebook. And recently I saw someone post something, and it was very much along the lines of what you're saying, which said that they want to disabuse people of the idea that after 18 a child is on their own, because they want their child to come home whenever they want, to steal toilet paper, to have a snack, raid the refrigerator, come home and ask me to make their favorite meal, ask me for advice, call me on the phone when you have a problem. And I think that that is totally true. I mean, I don't think that after I went all the way to college that I stopped wanting to come home, and I still wanted to come home Thanksgiving. We wanted to go to a Sabres game on Friday night and a Bills game on Sunday, and make sure that we had the whole weekend for Buffalo type things. I mean, I think that there's a lot to be said for that family, that someone you can rely on. You know, when Karen was born, she was a little early. I was living in D.C. I was living in D.C. You know, when we went to the hospital, it got to be about midnight, and I told my husband, go call my mom, tell her my mom she needs to come immediately. And he was like, it's midnight. I said, I don't care, she's got to be here by the time the baby's born. I mean, it was certainly the first thought, well, second thought maybe, but making sure that you were there.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think that those kinds of things never really end. You know, you want advice. You know, Dad's not here, but I certainly would call him for advice on when I was buying my first house and had to go through all those when the stack of paperwork was this big. I was like, what is all this? What do I need to know? And, you know, there's things that you need help with and you need advice with that go way beyond just graduating from high school.
Did I ever teach you anything or say anything or give you any advice that has stuck with you? Probably not. That's my own question.
That's a loaded question. I mean, I think that there's lots of different pieces of advice. Certainly, you know, it would have to be subject matter relevant. You know, I'd have to think about what was the topic and then come up with a piece of advice. But there was definitely lots of advice. And I think, you know, they always say, what voices do you hear in the back of your mind? I always hear, you know, we talk about different things. I mean, you mentioned this the other day, and I think one of those things is a work ethic. The idea that, you know, you show up to a job and you give it all you've got and you work hard and you be loyal. You know, you listen to the people that are in front of you or the people that matter and make sure that they're pleased with the job that you can do. I think also, you know, you once said that, like, you can make anyone like you if you spend enough time with them, let them know who you are, as opposed to that initial, they always say you judge people by his cover, but if you always told me that if they get to know you, that they should like you, and that you were able to win people over by sort of that finessing. And I think that those are important things, and I think those are truthful. You know, they've been born to be truthful as time has gone on. I've seen them in action.
You know, I learned that from my own mother, too. You know, one of those old sayings, you catch more flies with honey. Yeah. And I think I learned that, too. So I want to conclude by saying that I'm so lucky that I have you for a daughter. And not only are you sensitive and intelligent and thoughtful, but loving. And I cannot get over how loving and how sensitive and how you have brought up your daughter and spent all the time and effort and energy into her and into her life and with her life. So I'm really proud of you, and I love you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, everybody. I want to thank my daughter Robin for joining me and let her know how very blessed I am. When we come back, checking out another great Western New York restaurant.